Gonna tie sobriety in there. 3 pillars of the show. Jake hates when I get excited for myself, and I don't blame him. But it's kind of tongue in cheek, all right, guys. I'm not this fucking douchey, but as far as alcohol went in there, how did you notice, like, because I think alcohol can be sacred, it can bring people together, it can also be destructive. Did you notice like this dichotomy going on? Did you ever observe it?
Yeah, in college, 100%. I would say typically it's a negative, but it's also like a time where you're learning that as well. Like, at the time in college, I didn't think about alcohol in the same way you do now, and it was not as concerning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was like when you were coming there on the weekends, right? It's typically like a party scenario, and then that also ties in the confidence thing. It's like, obviously in a scenario where you're at a bar at your house and you have friends over and you're drinking, yeah, I mean, it's far more easier to be like comfortable, in that kind of scenario, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely view it a bit differently now. I would say, like, do not do the same stuff as college for the most part. It's like, yeah.
When would you let your kids start drinking, or when would you turn a blind eye to it?
I mean, I was raised as like by the law, 21.
Obviously,
but
now did you
did not comply with that all the time. But I think there's like a plus and a minus to that. Would be, yeah, you probably keep your kids out of trouble, more so if you have stricter rules like that. But at the same time, can also see the argument to, like, we had multiple friends we know who went off to college who were, extremely strict parents in that sense, specifically around alcohol or staying out late or whatever it may be, to where I had like enough flexibility with it. It was hard about, if you got caught drinking or something, yeah, but like there was enough of a blind eye to where I had some freedom. I got off to college and I could handle myself. Mm-hmm. Whereas, some of our buddies, and I'm sure this is just common overall, that freedom was just too much and took too much advantage of it, to where it's like detrimental.
That's a very interesting question. Yeah, because I think a lot of certainly libertarians and these types of people, like, we freedom. I want my agency. I want my freedom. I think freedom is very much so aligned with chaos in the sense that, you can have this freedom, but how do you make sure that you're going to have things in place to rein yourself back in when freedom gets out of control, or when that freedom that you have, begins to sublimate into other things, more destructive behaviors, tendencies.
Yeah, becomes a negative.
That's very interesting. Huh. And you were never like a person that got into drugs either, which I admire about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also admire the fact that you're doing the 1 year, now it's the second time around. Uh-huh. But yeah, man, weed did not ever sit right with me. Like, it just, I boycotted that. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely respect like the 1 year that you're doing. I was like, that's not something I was particularly interested in doing. I could see the 100% the benefit in it, but yeah.
Yeah, I
think it's respectable.
Yeah.
But once again, it's just not something at the time I was interested in doing.
I don't think everyone needs to do it. I don't think maybe even I would necessarily need, even right now, do I necessarily need to do it? I'm not certain. But God, alcohol is so fun. It's so fucking fun. And I think I don't know if I was telling you about this, or who I was telling about this, but like I was reflecting on it a little bit. And oh, and I put this in my Instagram post. So if you saw that, if you didn't, but like my baseline is to go, what's everything that could go wrong? Everything that could go. Could this guy try to fight us? Could yes. I try, right? Could this person stumble over and fall? And then when I'm drinking alcohol, that all goes away, and I'm present. And presence is very much so something that I think, the Bible is trying to help us attain. I think it's one of the deepest necessary things that you're looking for in human life is, how do I become present? That's why people do yoga, meditate, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And alcohol gives you a shortcut to that.
No, most definitely.
But right, but
Yes.
two sides of the same coin. Now there's a destructive side of that as well. But it's really cool. It's like the Carl Jung quote. I keep bringing him up in the podcast. I brought him up a lot in Jack's. But it's, beware of unearned wisdom, and I think that is certainly an instance of that.
Yeah. I mean, I like the point that you make about, like when you do go out and have some drinks, like it relieves that maybe that barrier you put up, whatever it may be, to where you, like, I think you said you can feel like you're just truly being yourself, not filtered or like putting up barriers, right? But yeah, it's like then it gets to a point where it becomes a negative. So in that sense, it's a positive. And like anything else, it's like too much, then it becomes a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, I like it for that use as well. Like especially in like a social setting, like we talked about earlier, to where you're not as comfortable with these people. Yeah, it can be, I think, a crutch. Like that's probably viewed as like a negative sense, but like, yes, I 100% use it as a crutch sometimes, like in a social setting, if applicable, but not, you don't want to be the guy who's like blackout drunk at a social setting. So there's a fine line,
Yeah, I kind of like the way that you put that, because I think, you can use it as a crutch, but that crutch could also be looked at as a tool. It's like, if I'm in a video game and then, you have potions that you can drink, maybe you drink a little potion to upgrade your charisma a little bit. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's really not. I really don't think it is, actually.
As long as it's not like I try to view in this sense is like, it's good in those scenarios. Yes. Like it's more freeing, and you can talk to people you I don't know, should connect with, and maybe it's a positive, and maybe you wouldn't have talked with them if you didn't have a beer at that event or something. Right.
I mean, 100%.
But then if it's like the thing I think about a lot, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, but like you can't view that as like, all right, well, every setting is going to be like, oh, I'll be able to have like a beer or something. And then it's like truly a crutch. Right. So I think about that sometimes, but like, just doing more things like that, without alcohol is just like exercising that muscle to like mimic that confidence and that like same ability without any kind of like crutch. Right.
Totally.
So
Totally.
yeah.
Then when you need that little potion, you can just kind of